This is the Summit League Podcast, an inside look at a league ascending in the world of college basketball, yet remaining one of its best-kept secrets. We'll showcase the league's men's and women's basketball stars on their journey to reach the summit and pursue the big dance. Now, here's your host of the Summit League Podcast, Matt Pocket.
An episode you're sure to love on Valentine's Day. It's episode 3 of the Summit League podcast. A big show this week. Thanks for listening to the last couple of episodes. But first, big news across the Summit. In case you missed it, the Summit League recently rolled out a brand new app for its basketball championships. And, pardon the pun, I've got to go there. It's a slam dunk. All right. I had to get that one out of the way. Seriously, this thing is incredible. I love it. I've been playing around with it for a couple of weeks now. And don't go emailing my boss about this or anything, but I have not gotten a whole lot of stuff done here in the last couple of weeks because I'll be perfectly honest, I've been playing around with this app for the most part. This thing is awesome. I suppose if you did tell him, he'd probably just nod and believe you anyway, though. Anyway, that's beside the point. This app is incredible. I love it, especially if you're going to the tournament. You have to get this thing. Have to. It's got all the basics. It's got links to player profiles, team information, the full schedule once it gets released for the Summit League tournament, and it's got a super slick layout. I love the layout of this thing. It's really nice and easy visually on you. But it's also fully interactive with the tournament itself. You tell it where you're sitting, it's going to help you find stuff to do around that area in the Denny Sanford Premier Center. It'll show you what concessions are near your seat. It tells you what's where. It's going to help you out with merchandise if you want to buy some swags, get some gear. It tells you what's going on where in the building. You can register to win tickets. You can buy tickets through the app. FanFest updates, which I think is going to be a ton of fun. Team gear. Again, you can get the hookup on everything that you want basically through this app. Now, tickets are available today, and if you already had the app downloaded a couple days ago, if you had the gift of foresight, you got a special pre-order code to jump to the front of the line and get them before everybody else. That was sweet. Good looking out for you. Lucky you. If not, sorry. Better luck next year, I suppose, because that was a sweet deal if you went ahead and downloaded the app a couple of days ago. Now, to access the new Summit League Basketball Championships app and to get complete tournament information, you can go to thesummitleague.org/march to the summit. Again, that's thesummitleague.org/march, the number 2, the summit. Or you can search for it on the Google Play Store, like me, or through the App Store on your Apple devices. Search for the Summit League and fall in love with this thing right away here on Valentine's Day or the next few weeks leading up to the tournament. Seriously, this thing is great. I mean, if you're anything like me, your productivity is going to go way down because you're just going to be cruising through this app. It's a really well done app, and boy, I can't wait to see what the response is to this thing because I think it's going to be great. The fan experience, especially with FanFest going on this year in Sioux Falls, the 10th year in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, especially with FanFest going on. This thing is a game changer. This is the real McCoy. All right, gang, Summit League Players of the Week. Last week's guest, Faith Iham, was a beast against South Dakota State. She had a career-high 31 points in a performance where Oral Roberts was dealing with a lot of injuries, and the Golden Eagles only dressed 8 for that game. All that being said, she still goes out there and sets a career high with 31 points. She had herself a game. It's a tough situation, and again, going into Frost Arena, too, never an easy place to play. She also had 8 rebounds in the loss to South Dakota State. Now, when they beat North Dakota State a couple days earlier, she had a huge stat line, 17 points, 14 rebounds, and 4 steals. It's Faith Iham's second Player of the Week nomination, and it is well-deserved because she had herself a week out there on the basketball court. Meanwhile, Omaha's Zach Jackson earned his first Career Player of the Week award on the men's side. Zach scored 25 with 4 triples in the win against Western Illinois for the Omaha Mavericks, and he put up a monster stat line against Fort Wayne, too. 16 with 7 boards, 4 steals, and 2 blocks for the Mavs. Again, He was a beast. He had himself a week, and he is the Summit League Player of the Week. Congrats, Faith. Congrats, Zach, on those awards. All right, on to the podcast. This week, Kevin Connors, SportsCenter, KC's Mid-Major Minute, SDSU women's basketball star Macy Miller, NDSU men's basketball star Paul Miller, and Jim Turgeon, the head coach of the Denver Pioneers, are all featured. So let's get to it. We'll open up with a member of South Dakota's first family of basketball. We're the Millers. It's Macy Miller here on the Summit League podcast.
In its fourth decade, the Summit League continues its ascent through excellence in the classroom and success in the field of play. In cities big and small, at public and private universities, students across league institutions reach for the Summit. From academic All-Americans to NCAA champions and nationally ranked teams, Summit League student-athletes achieve the pinnacle of success. The Summit League, where tomorrow's leaders reach the summit today.
The march to the summit is on. Follow exciting Summit League men's and women's basketball action as teams race towards the championship and a trip to the big dance. Go to thesummitleague.org or follow on Twitter @SummitHoops to stay up to date all season long. Now, let's get back to Matt Pocket and the Summit League podcast.
All right here in the Summit League podcast HQ, Macy Miller, South Dakota State Jackrabbits, on the phone line. Macy, welcome to the program. How are you?
Good. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Second in the league in scoring, Macy. You're shooting 46% from deep this year. That's a ridiculously high number. That's laughable almost. And you tend to have really strong performances in big games, too. Western Illinois on January 20th, where you scored 31 on the Leathernecks. A week earlier, you put up 26 against Oral Roberts. What helps you stand out in big games, Macy?
I guess I just tell myself to come out and every game play with confidence. And, there's just something about those big games. You just get full of energy and, I just get in the zone. So I just say I'm just well prepared.
Macy, you had some very high highs a year ago, scoring your 1,000th career point early in the season, but you also suffered a season-ending injury early in the year. What was that year like for you in between?
Yeah, I'd say it's a long year. You go down with an injury. You're away from the team a lot because you're doing your rehab on your own, trying to get back. And, it's long, but it's also a blessing in disguise because you learn so much about basketball and the sport you love. It's sitting out, I'm watching the game. I'm seeing stuff that maybe I didn't see on the court, and I'm taking stuff from players and just learning in my role.
And then in turn, what's that return like for you? Your first game is back from injury, and what kind of things did you see that changed your game maybe?
Yeah, I'd say just my all-around game. I worked really hard on my three-point shot, and just put a lot of time into that, and even just my point guard skills, just like my ball handling. I just say I put a lot of time into that, and that first game back is scary. You don't know what to expect, and you're kind of nervous. You haven't played for about over a year, so but it was exciting, and I was excited to get back.
You're working to become a strength and conditioning coach after basketball, too. Did suffering that injury give you any insight on dealing with major injuries that you think that you can turn around and apply into your post-playing career?
Yeah, that played a huge role in my major. I had torn my ACL in high school, my first one, my left knee, and I knew when I was doing my rehab there that I wanted to work with athletes, and I think that really persuaded me to go into the major here at SDSU. And I just loved, just working hard and, just putting my passion into something, and I really want to do that in my career.
Is that something that you can now relate to your teammates, too, whenever they go through injury issues? Or are you the first one there just listen, I got you, I've been there?
Yeah, exactly. Whenever a teammate goes down, it's hard, but, I always want to be there because I've been through it, and, doing strength and conditioning, I'll be able to relate to my clients and be able to push them, and it'd just be neat to see them get back to the playing field.
Macy Miller, South Dakota State. You beat the Golden Eagles on Saturday, 96-72. It was senior night, too. What was that like for you, since that would have been your senior night to see, but you had the redshirt year?
Yes. Yeah, we talked about that beforehand. It's just so crazy how your 4 years of basketball can just go so fast. And I remember coming in with those seniors last year, and just being on the official visit with them and just to see them, they played so well during senior night. It was very cool. But, it's sad to see them go, but, we've had a great year with them and we're not done yet, so we're excited to see where we go.
Macy, that game against ORU was interesting because Faith Iham had a really strong game for the Golden Eagles, but they only dressed 8 players. They've been severely depleted by injury, too. Did you as a team say, okay, she's going to get hers, contain the rest, we'll be fine, or did you game plan to make her go through a brick wall, basically, to score those points?
Yeah, that whole team is good, and, I'm so sorry for them. They've been going through a lot of injuries, but we know Faith is a really good player, and, the whole week of practice, we really worked on, guarding her and how we'd guard her, and even the team. They have good three-point shooters, and they have other playmakers on the team. So, we just wanted to play a style of defense that we've been playing the whole year.
Macy Miller, South Dakota State Jackrabbits, you've always been a strong offensive team at SDSU, but since the calendar flipped over, you've only been held under 70 points just twice, once by just a point against Denver and then once against South Dakota, too. How have you kicked it up another notch, even for a good offensive team, since then?
Yeah, I'd say after that USD loss, it's a tough loss with an interior rival, but I'd just say we really took it to heart, and I think we're playing really well on our offense. We have people that know when they can score. We have really good passers that we can find an open person. We're not just relying on one person every night, or we're not taking tough shots. We're finding each other really well and passing the ball well.
What do you think it is about Frost Arena that makes it so tough to play there? Because that's a big part of the program. Nobody comes to Frost and wins.
Yeah, it's a really great place, and I love it here. And I'd just say the fan support. They do a very good job here, coming to games and supporting us. And it just gets so loud. You don't think you have that 2,000 people, but, when you make that shot, you feel the chills because they just get so loud on the court.
This league is stacked at the top, too. You've got South Dakota, SDSU, Western Illinois still in the mix. Do you like being a part of that intrigue as the season moves into its final stages, or do you kind of prefer just to sweep through everybody and be the wrecking ball early?
Oh, no, I think it's fun to have that close in conference games. No one just wants to sweep through. I mean, it'd be nice to sweep through the games, but I'd say it makes it more fun. It's coming down to the end. Game by game, you have to play hard every game because every game matters. And, it's exciting when you go into that Summit League in first place.
Macy Miller, South Dakota State Jackrabbits here on the Summit League podcast. Macy, on January 20th, SDSU hosted Western Illinois and clobbered the Leathernecks 84-48. You hit 8 straight baskets at one point in the second quarter, and the Jacks shot 14 of 17 from the floor in that second quarter. Anytime you see a result like that, I think it's surprising between two top teams in the league, but was it shocking or surprising to you on the floor?
No, I just say we worked really hard in practice, just working on their defense and, where the open spots were and, the open people and where they'd be. And I thought we just did a very good job, finding each other, passing the ball well. So I wouldn't say there's anything shocking. We're a great offensive team, and we did a very good job finding people.
And they have a really good team, too. They've got Emily Clemens, who's setting all kinds of records, Taylor Higginbotham, Morgan Bloomer, too. What changes in preparation from the first meeting to the next on Saturday when you head down to Macomb?
You're not playing at home anymore. You play so much better at home, but, we're going to practice this week and get ready for them, and, they're going to play well at home, too. So we got to be prepared for that and just be ready to go. That it's not going to be the same game that we had here. It's going to be a lot closer, and we just got to be, prepared that they're going to make the shots that maybe they missed here, so it's going to be a tough one.
Over the last decade, South Dakota State has been the team with the target on its back, the team that wins the conference championship every season, and then other teams have to go and hunt for throughout the course of the year. How does it change now that Western Illinois won that conference championship last season? Do you get up for those games, and now that's a big rivalry?
Oh, for sure. We talk about it, at practice, or, we just kind of joke about it, that it's not just USD anymore that's a rival. It's also Western Illinois, just because they won it last year, and I think they've always given us good games. So, we always joke about that, but, we have that target on our back. Everyone wants to beat us because, our goal is to win that Summit League every year or be conference champions. So I'd say we always have that target on our back.
It's a program, South Dakota State, that's had a lot of standouts over the years. How do you feel about your place in amongst those standouts historically?
You know, I try not to think about it too much or put too much thought in it. You know, I just take it day by day and want to be the best player that I can be every day, and you know, things will turn out. So.
Macy Miller, South Dakota State, SDSU also becoming famous for its three-pointers right now. The world-renowned three-point specialists. You, Madison Giebert, Mike Daum. Do you three ever battle it out with each other in three-point shooting contests, or more
No.
just watching each other and appreciating the art?
Yeah, I'd say we're just watching each other and appreciating each other. You know, we just always, I guess, couple nights I've seen him in here shooting, and you know, Maddie, just how great she's been, you know, with her three-point shot. That I guess has also inspired me that I want to improve, you know, every aspect of my game, and so I can't just rely on one thing all the time. So I'd say we just kind of feed off of each other. You
and Giebert have hit 40% of your threes combined. Do you ever think of yourselves maybe like the Summit League version of the Splash Bros, the Splash Sisters? Maybe do you guys joke around about that?
No, we don't, but it'd be pretty cool. I guess you could be called that.
We're crowning you with nicknames right now.
Sounds good.
You've got some good basketball players in your family too, Macy. Your brothers were really good ball players. Your dad was a star. Your cousins are pretty much all state champions. You've got about 100 state championships in the family. A bunch of them had really good college careers. Mike Miller, long NBA career. What were those driveway games like growing up? How competitive did that get?
Oh, I can't. It was so competitive. I just can remember just playing with my brothers out in the driveway, and you know, if I was winning or if I was mad about something, we'd always be storming off the court. My brother would probably punch me, and I'd have like bruises on my arms. We were fighting over games, and yeah, we were big competitors, and I think they just shaped me to who I am today. You know, I have that mental toughness, or you know, in those games, but you know, that's what strives me to be a better player. And like growing up and watching them, I think it's just, you know, helped me, because I'd go in the gym when my brothers were in high school and my sister, and I'd watch them and be like, oh, I want to be like that. And I just think they really inspired me to work hard and just to, you know, go out there and do your best.
Do you all still play against each other at all, or have you kind of let those games go for the time being?
We kind of let some of them go. Me and my brothers and my sisters will joke about it, like who would win a pig game. And when I was in high school, they'd be like, Macy, we'll beat her in a three-point contest, because I didn't shoot a lot of threes in high school. So now that I'm like shooting more in college, I'm like, see if you guys can beat me now. We do a lot of joking with each other, and all for fun.
Have they taken you up on that three-point game, or have they kind of stayed away now that you're blasting away from deep?
They've stayed away.
Of course they have, right?
Yeah, of course.
When the cousins all get together, too, how did the teams usually get drawn up? Did you go kind of because you've got enough family members there that you could make a tournament even out of this?
Yeah, for sure. That Miller side is huge. And, you know, when we're together for Christmas or Thanksgiving, you know, basketball is the only thing we're talking about.
Yeah.
We love the game as a family, and I guess, you know, it's just fun to be able to spend that with them or talk about it with them, and it's pretty cool.
One of the things that I've noticed about your game is you're incredibly efficient near the rim for being a big three-point shooter, and then for being somebody who can take the basketball inside, you're a really good three-point shooter. So that's a big reason why you've got such a diverse offensive game then, playing with your big family?
Yeah. And when I was in high school, like, I didn't shoot a whole lot of threes, and I'd say so a lot of my game in high school was driving to the basket, or, you know, getting those foul calls and shooting a lot of free throws. And when I transitioned into college, it was more I needed to work on the outside game, because I couldn't drive in the basket all the time. There's 6'5", 6'8" girls in there, so I need to expand my game by being able to shoot the threes.
And is that in turn why you've developed a good mid-range game, Macy Miller? Because that's not an area that's really popular right now in basketball. A lot of people are going away from the mid-range jumper, yet you've kind of made a living off that too.
Yeah, I'd say that was a huge part of my game in high school as well. I love that pull-up jumper and even the step back. So, you know, I just brought it into college with me, and I just keep practicing on it, because, you know, it is like a tough shot. you'd rather go in for a layup or shoot the three, but, I just keep working on it.
Yeah, if the space is there on the floor, you got to be able to take advantage of it. Macy, what did it mean to you to be able to play at the Division I level in your home state?
I think it's amazing. I love South Dakota State, and, it's Division I, and it's a great program that's a winning tradition. And, when I wanted to pick somewhere to go, I wanted somewhere close. I'm a homebody, and I wanted my family, the whole Miller side, and just to be able to come watch me. And, South Dakota's just been great.
What's the tournament experience like for you? It's not all that far away in Sioux Falls.
Oh, it's exciting. Just gives me chills just thinking about it. It's tournament time. It's when everyone's going to play their best, and, you just got to play your best and hopefully come out on top.
Couple of big games coming up. Again, on Saturday, you take on Western Illinois, and then a couple of days after that, the flip trip over to Vermilion to play South Dakota, and then you close out the regular season against Fort Wayne. How do you feel about those games? Just a little ways out from the end of the year.
Yeah, I'd say there's 3 huge games that we have left. These are our last 3, and they're on the road, so they're not going to be easy. And I'd say these 3 are going to tell us where we're going to be for the Summit League. So we need to play our best defense, and just come out and hopefully beat them.
Macy Miller, South Dakota State, we're looking forward to watching you continue to get buckets into March. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you.
All right, remember, you can follow South Dakota State on Twitter at GoJacksWBB and South Dakota State Athletics in general at GoJacksSDSU. On the way next, North Dakota State star Paul Miller right here on the Summit League podcast.
The madness returns to Sioux Falls with the 2018 Summit League Basketball Championships. See one of the nation's top college basketball tournaments March 3rd through the 6th at the Denny Sanford Premier Center. Tickets are on sale now at any Ticketmaster outlet. All session tickets starting at less than $10 per game. Support your team and find out who will punch their ticket to the big dance. Go to thesummitleague.org/tickets and claim your seats today. Brought to you by the generosity of our sponsors and the Sioux Falls Sports Authority.
The Summit League Basketball Championships celebrate their 10th season in Sioux Falls, March 3rd through the 6th. Be part of one of the nation's premier college basketball tournaments by ordering tickets today. Visit thesummitleague.org/tickets for more details and reserve your seat to witness the March to the Summit. Now, let's get back to Matt Pocket and the Summit League podcast.
All right, it is Paul Miller on the line, the North Dakota State Bison star. Paul, welcome to the program, sir. It's good to have you. How are you today?
Thanks, Matt. Thanks for having me. No, not too bad. Just a little cold, but.
Oh, it's cold all over right now. I mean, we were talking off the air a minute ago here. I mean, I'm in Sault Ste. Marie, Michigan right now. We're 16 above, and you guys are like, sweet, heat wave.
Yeah, absolutely. That's warm for us here in Fargo.
Paul, you've been a key player on this Bison team since you got to Fargo. First, you were a key sub as a freshman playing big minutes, then as a major player on this team. Now you're a major league star. How do you reflect on your personal development with this team over the years?
I mean, personally, I think I just kind of took the route of every freshman at a middle major. You come in right away and you're looking around and everything's new. So my first year, I was just trying to do everything I can to help the team, and then just contribute whenever needed. Whether I was hitting open shots or playing defense, obviously. And then, as the years just have gone on, big emphasis on improving each offseason, and I just got better and better every year.
Paul, your head coach, Dave Richmond, was an assistant under Saul Phillips. He's been at this program for a long time, too. What impact do you think a guy like him has on building a program, not just for one team 1 year, but for future years, too, having that continuity?
Oh, absolutely. It's huge, Like you said, he's been here not just as a head coach but for 4 years, but for over 10 years, as an assistant. So the big thing there is it just helps to build and keep a strong tradition in the program. He's been here for 3 tournament runs, so he knows how to get it done, and he's able to keep that tradition going.
Paul Miller, North Dakota State Bison, the star point guard, small forward, power forward, shooting guard. You played everywhere at some point or another for this program. Point guard this year, though, one of the few spots on the floor that you never really played a ton before. What's that like for you?
Right. It's a little bit different, and something where I'm not playing as much now in the season since Cameron Hunter has come along so well. And even today, I still have too many turnovers. It seems like just about every game, so still learning. It's something where you're not just out there trying to you can't really worry about just yourself when you're the point guard. You got to worry about all 5 spots on the floor, make sure everybody's in their spot and everybody knows what's going on.
It's not just a matter either of having the ball in your hands a lot more, but since you've shifted between these positions, what are some of the differences between playing the 1 and the 2 that might go a little deeper that fans might not notice just by watching?
Personally, what I notice is that it's just a little bit more work, a lot of times there's a lot of quick guards in the summer league, so guys will pick you up full court, and just that extra 6 or 7 seconds that it takes to bring the ball up the court, it over the course of 40 minutes it really tires you out, and then obviously the leadership parts about it. At every dead ball, we're coached to always come into a huddle, and the point guard is always the one that's leading that, so. In past years, I've just been listening to what the point guard has to say, what plays he's calling, and this year, a lot of times it's me calling those plays and telling guys what to do. So just a little bit different and more of a role for me.
Is that something where you have to read the game on the fly, or do you get with the coaching staff and kind of figure out, all right, we want to kind of run things in sequence somewhat?
Sometimes it's on the fly, but most of the time stuff is coming from coach. As the point guard, you're kind of the mediator there between the two, he's talking to you throughout the game, and then you got to be able to make sure that you can go to all the other guys and make sure that everybody's on the same page.
Now, like you said, Paul Miller not handling the ball so much as the true number 1 at this point in the season, but kind of relating to some of those experiences. Again, a new position that you did have to play early on in the season. Big for that position, too, at 6'6", and even for the 2 guard, a little bit big, too. How does your size impact that, playing the guard position versus being a forward?
Oh, it's huge. That's something that the coaches like at NSU like to recruit. They like to recruit big guards, and a lot of times we got some lineups where I'm the smallest guy out there at 6'6", and we kind of tailored it a little bit to trying to get guys in certain spots. If a smaller guard is guarding me, we try to get me into the post a little bit, or if it's on a guy like Tyson Ward or Dangu, we try to get them in spots where they're able to kind of take advantage of their mismatch.
Paul Miller, North Dakota State, you're 3rd in the league in scoring right now, very consistent this season. What's helped you develop that consistency as a scorer?
I think it's just confidence and repetition, like I said, as the years go by, you always develop a lot each and every off season. You add certain points, and like this year, I think I added the post up that I never really had before. And it's just the confidence that you gain. Like my 4th year going through summer league play, 4th year playing in all these gyms on the road. You just kind of get into a little bit of a comfort level with everything that's going on. What
are some of your favorite gyms to play in around the conference?
Favorite gyms, let's see. I usually like playing at Omaha. Fort Wayne's usually been a good one. I really liked playing at IUPUI, so I was a little bit upset when they left. And then USD too, but Denver's usually the one where I don't play as well, but we don't talk about that one as much.
Paul, you did go through a bit of a tough stretch last season where it just wasn't happening for you offensively. Then you figured it out, and you made everybody else pay just as you were getting into conference play. What helped you get out of that slump?
I think the big thing for me was I got off to kind of a decent start to the year last year, and I thought I kind of got complacent a little bit. And then, like you said, I went through a pretty rough stretch there. I think there was a game where I didn't even score at home against UND in a rivalry game. And after that game, I made a consistent effort to always be in the gym whenever I could, getting extra shots up. I think the big thing any time for a shooter is getting the confidence, not from in games, but in practice, and in the time on your own that you're spending in the gym.
Paul Miller, North Dakota State, and again, once you came out of that slump, you haven't stopped scoring since then. You're 3-1 in your career against in-state rival North Dakota. How important is it to the program to beat them in the non-conference and set the stage now that they're going to be coming into the Summit League next year?
Yeah, those are always some of the more fun games that we play in each year. It's always fun just playing any of your rivals, them or SDSU, USD. The rivalry games are the ones that players really look forward to. And then I'm not from North Dakota, but I can tell just how much this one means to the fans, when we play UND. And then, like you said, they're coming into the conference next year, so just about setting a tone, letting them know that we're here and we're here to stay.
North Dakota State, of course, a big football power. Do you guys feed off their success as a program together, and do you think it helps rally the fans into other sports like men's basketball?
Yeah, I think a little bit, we're all obviously they work out and they practice and stuff over in the dome, but when they're in the weight room or something at the same time as us, it always seems like there's a little bit more of a vibe going on. It's just cool to see them succeed, being friends with a lot of them, and then you're trying to keep up with them a little bit at times. But it's just always great, no matter what the team is at NDSU, to see anybody succeed.
Paul Miller, North Dakota State Bison. You're a 6'6" guy who can rebound the basketball. You're great from the free throw line, and you're a threat from three. Do you have any interest in going pro when your college career is done? Have you given that a whole lot of thought at this point?
Yeah, absolutely. Just wherever the best fit is for me after the season is done. I've had people reaching out to me and stuff, but I'm trying to focus on finishing off this season, finishing it right. But I would like to play basketball as long as I could, and as long as I'm healthy enough to do so.
Paul, some tough questions. Here we go. What do you remember about your first college point?
My first college point, I actually remember exactly what it was. We were playing at Texas, and I hit a left wing three, just kind of a inside out pass, and it was the first shot I took too. So it just kind of built a little bit of confidence in me that we're playing on the road at a top 10 team, and I hit my first shot. So that was really cool. Yeah,
that's a good place to get it done too. What about your first college game? How much do you remember about the whole thing?
Well, I remember that we got beat pretty bad. That Texas was obviously a really good team, and actually the funniest part about it was that they had the part I remember the most was that they had a DJ that was pretty fun to listen to in timeouts and stuff. They would have people running around on the court, and just the atmosphere at that game was crazy.
What's your favorite sport to watch other than basketball?
Hands down, football.
Okay.
I'm a big Green Bay Packer fan. Obviously, disappointing this year that Rodgers took such a cheap shot and he went down. No, I'm just kidding. But I'm a big Green Bay Packer fan. Always have been. So definitely football.
It might put you at odds with a lot of the locals there in Fargo, because a lot of them are big Vikings fans, and you probably weren't all that sad that they weren't playing in their hometown at the Super Bowl, right?
Oh no, I was definitely rooting for the Eagles in that one. So that was really. I was watching it with a lot of Vikings fans, so that was fun to get an Eagles win there.
Build an NBA starting five with you in it.
With me in it.
With you in it. Yeah.
Okay.
This is going to be a weird one again, because you've played all these different positions. You haven't played center at all, have you? That's probably the only one.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, I haven't. Let's see. I'd have to start with LeBron. Just in my opinion, the best to ever do it. And I'll go with the hometown. I got to go with Giannis.
I know where you're going with this. Yep, Giannis. Yep. He's the man.
Yep. I'd say if you put LeBron with Steph at the 1, me at the 2, that's a lot of shooting. I'd say we could go small ball and have KD in there, just have Giannis kind of playing the 5, KD at the 4, LeBron at the 3.
That's interesting. You're going pretty thin there, but again, all that length, all that rebounding too. Yeah.
Yep.
Who's your idol growing up as a basketball player?
I'd have to say LeBron. I mean, it's just, the funny thing is, I wasn't really the biggest LeBron fan until he went to Miami, and then I kind of got on. That's when I started to become a real fan of him, because it just seemed like he was going up against adversity, night in, night out, and just seeing him, just how consistent he is, making it to the finals. What is it, the last 7 years? So he's just the most consistent, and I like how he has that all-around game. He scores, he rebounds, and most importantly, he gets his teammates involved, and he's always just fun to watch.
Who's your number 2 guy then, Giannis?
Number 2, I'd have to go with Giannis now, yeah. It was just cool seeing him develop each year, especially being from the Milwaukee area. Now he's an MVP candidate, so really cool just to see him improve each year.
Paul Miller, North Dakota State Bison here on the Summit League podcast. Fort Wayne coming to town on Saturday. Paul, that's your final regular season home game. Have you thought a lot about that, and what do you feel when you think that?
I mean, it's just crazy that's already senior night, I still remember listening to Lawrence Alexander when I was a freshman on his senior night. I mean, and it wasn't until last year where I kind of started to listen to Dexter and Carlin, what they were saying. Took a few notes from them so that I could kind of know what to do when they hand me the mic Saturday afternoon. I'll be a little nervous, but hopefully we'll be coming off a win and it won't be too bad.
Going into your final few games before the Summit League tournament, how do you reflect on your Bison career as a whole?
Yeah, I mean, that's a tough question.
Not to spoil anything for senior night, but
yeah, I mean, it's just been really fun, Obviously, I had a few bumps in the road, but I think the biggest thing for me was that I learned a lot from mistakes that I made, and like I talked about earlier, I kind of just kept getting better and better each year, and hopefully we can. We've lost a couple games here in a row, but hopefully we win these last 3 conference games, head into the tournament with some confidence and make a run at the dance.
Paul Miller, there's been a lot of big names in Bison basketball history, particularly over the last few years. Guys like Taylor Braun, a guy you mentioned a minute ago, Lawrence Alexander, who I got to see play as a freshman, and he was tremendous, even as a freshman. Ben Woodside, too. Where do you think you fit in with some of these names?
I'd like to think I'm right up there with him, I mean, like you said, there's just always been, especially in recent years, some really great players. And it's cool just hearing some of the stats. If I pass a couple of them in a category or something, it's just really cool to hear about that. Just being in the same conversation as some of those guys is humbling.
Paul Miller, you were on the Bison team that won the Summit League tournament in 2015, the first year at the Denny Sanford Premier Center. Do you have fond memories of that building, and what would it mean to you to open up that tournament? Open it up with a tournament win, and then close out your career with another one?
Yeah, it's obviously a great arena. It's a really fun place to play in. Last year it didn't go our way, but I mean, it's always been, it's at the end of the season. Everybody knows basically all the scouting report on everybody. So it just comes down to who's playing the hardest and who can do the little things. And man, I mean, just if we were standing on that podium on that Tuesday night, that would mean the world to me. That'd be the perfect way to end the career,
That would be a heck of a sight, my friend. Paul Miller, North Dakota State. Good to have you on the show.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
All right, gang, that's North Dakota State star Paul Miller here on the Summit League podcast. Before we get into it with Denver Pioneers head women's basketball coach Jim Turgeon, A reminder, the Summit League app, in case you missed it, the brand new app just got rolled out recently. If you're going to the tournament in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, you must get this thing. You have to get this thing. It's got all the basics that you need with player profile information, a complete schedule of games, everything you need to know just to kind of fit your way through everything, right? There's a lot of moving parts at the Summit League tournament, but it's got FanFest updates too, which is great. And you tell this thing where you are, it's going to help you find whatever you need in the building. Concessions, merchandising, everything that you want. You can buy tickets through this thing. If you download the app, you get a special pre-sale code so you can cut in front of the line of everybody else buying tickets to the madness in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. Go to thesummitleague.org/march to the summit. That's thesummitleague.org/march, the number 2, the summit, for more information on the Summit League app. You can also go to the Google Play Store or the App Store on your Apple devices. Search for the Summit League and start checking this thing out. This thing is beautiful. I fell in love with this thing instantly. The second I got my hands on it, I was like, wow, I don't think I'm ever actually going to get any work done anymore because I'm just going to be playing around on this app all the time. This is a tremendous app. And it doesn't even have the game information yet because we don't even know who is going to be playing when at the tournament. So it's a great app. Check it out. It's the Summit League app, and it's available now. All right, Jim Turgeon, the head coach of the Denver Pioneers women's basketball team, is ahead. He's next on the Summit League podcast.
In its 4th decade, the Summit League continues its ascent through excellence in the classroom and success in the field of play. In cities big and small, at public and private universities, students across league institutions reach for the summit. From academic All-Americans to NCAA champions and nationally ranked teams, Summit League student athletes achieve the pinnacle of success. The Summit League, where tomorrow's leaders reach the summit today.
Will your team reach the summit this season? The Summit League offers 19 sport championships, and you can get schedules, fan information, live stats, streaming, and more in one location at thesummitleague.org/championships. Need the latest updates? Follow each championship as it plays out on social media via Twitter @SummitChamps. And now, back to Matt Puckett on the Summit League podcast.
All right, welcome back into the studio as we are live with Denver Pioneers women's head basketball coach Jim Turgeon. Jim, welcome. Good to have you, sir. How are you today?
Yeah, thank you. Glad to be here. I'm glad to be back home in Colorado.
Yeah, you've had a long coaching history yourself, and we'll get into that deeper here in a couple of minutes. But how did you get into coaching? I know your brother Mark had a really interesting story when he got into it under Larry Brown. Apparently, Larry would ask him in games what he would do, and then he would shrug, sigh, roll his eyes, and go do something completely different. Then hired him as a coach. So, what was your story like? Was it anything like that?
No, I've known since I was 12 years old that I wanted to be a coach. My dad was a coach, and he coached my brother's traveling teams. And I'm 2 years older than Mark, so I was quote unquote my dad's assistant coach. And I remember, and basically all I did was just sit there and watch. But I remember thinking that we were in a tournament in Kansas City, and I remember thinking, man, this is pretty cool. This is what I want to do with the rest of my life. And it never really went away from me there. But I had some great mentors, too. My high school coach, Ben Meskey, he's in the Kansas Hall of Fame now. I learned a lot from him. Coach McCormick at the college level, I learned a lot from him. But I had some mentors, too. But really the number one thing was with my dad growing up, and I just knew I wanted to be a coach.
Jim, you spent a long time at the junior college level at Dodge City and at Iowa Western. What kinds of lessons did you learn at that level that you can now take and transfer to Division I, especially in terms of recruiting?
Well, I think everybody should go to junior college first to learn how to be a coach. You get to see both sides of recruiting. You get to see the side where you have to replace half your team every year because they're only there for 2 years. And then the other side, you got, Division I's, Division II's, Division III's recruiting your kids, so you get to see that side of recruiting too. So I think it's the best of both worlds on the recruiting side. And then also your team can completely change from year to year. You might go from a running team one year to you might need to slow the ball down and run sets the whole time, and it's what it's done. It's made me a more versatile coach. Sure, I recruited for a certain style of basketball, but sometimes that just didn't work out at the junior college level. So, I had to do things like every once in a while play zone when I'm not a zone guy, or slow the ball down. I don't want to slow the ball down guy either, but sometimes you just had to deal with the hand you were dealt, and it was a great experience. I honestly believe everybody should have that experience, before they go up to the big time anyway.
Jim, one of the things that you've talked about in other interviews is it's not just having to handle all that responsibility and that constant change as a basketball coach. At that level, you have to do all of the things in the program. You don't have a big team that you can lean on. Scheduling, meals, transportation, everything is up to you as the top dog in that program. How do you think that's now prepared you, now that you've been at the Division I level for a couple of months, where suddenly now those resources are available to you?
Yeah, at the junior college level, we usually just had one assistant, and back then I pretty much just did everything myself. And but yeah, you're right. I'm the academic advisor. I'm the sweep the floor guy. I just did everything you could do. And quite honestly, when I first got here to Denver with 3 full-time assistants and a basketball operations guy, I was having a hard time delegating because I'm used to doing everything myself. So, but it prepared me. I know every level from our basketball operations guy what he needs to do because I've done it before, to our recruiting coordinator, to our individual workout person. I've experienced. I've done them all. So that experience is just invaluable, and it's really helped me at this level because I can mentor my assistant coaches on each of those things because I've already done them already.
Jimmy, your last stop, a couple of tremendously successful years at Division II, Colorado State Pueblo. You set win records at the school, and you went out and tested yourself, too, in the non-conference schedule, the exhibition schedule, playing Division I level competition, playing them well. You even beat Southern Utah in your first season. They're a Division I team. What was that level of basketball like at Division II versus now being at Division I, and then kind of grading that in turn against the level of basketball that you see at junior college?
Yeah, we were very blessed. I inherited a good team, and we were luckily able to make them great teams. We actually beat 2 Division I teams my first year there, and then we played tougher teams my second year there in Division I. We played Colorado State tough, and I can't even remember the other one, but played them tough and lost. But there's a lot of talent at Division II level. The biggest difference between Division I and Division II, in my estimation, is just the height, the size, and the speed of it. But we were blessed at CSU Pueblo. We had some size for a Division II team. We had some quickness. We had some girls who could shoot. But I tell you, the biggest shocking thing for me from Division II to Division I, the basketball IQ is about the same. I think there's some kids that can really know the game at the Division II and probably at the Division III and JUCO level, and just like the Division I players. But again, the biggest difference is just the overall size and the overall quickness, the speed of the game is a little different. So, very blessed that CSU Pueblo had 2 great years and have a lot of good friends there.
You see a lot of good talent come through, too. I work Division II in my local beat, and one of the things that you see are some incredible basketball players who come through, and whether it's that they weren't very big, and so Division I didn't think that they could cut it, or whether it was they were a really good shooter, but they weren't great defensively, and that's something that they had to put a lot of work into. A lot of great players fall through the cracks.
They really do, and that's exactly what happens. They're it might be a size issue, it might be a speed issue, or they're real strong. Just exactly the things you said. Because by the time they're juniors and seniors, quite frankly, I probably had 4 or 5 girls at CSU Pueblo that could play here at University of Denver and play a lot. And sometimes it just takes them, a couple extra years to get to this, level of play. But there's some really good players at Division II, and quite frankly, there's probably a lot. There's not a lot. There's probably a few Division II teams that could beat us this year. But we're building. I think we're really going to build something here special at University of Denver, and we're working really hard, and we're going the right direction.
Jim Turgeon, the head coach of the Denver Pioneers women's basketball team. Last year, this team went 6-24. This season, a young starting lineup. You're 14-12, 5-6 in the league, starting 2 freshmen, 2 sophomores for the most part, on a team with a lot of returning players. How do you account for the turnaround now?
Well, everything you mentioned is true. And another thing people take for granted, we lost their leading scorer last year graduated. I would love to have Jacqueline Paz on this team, and then a starting post player is down here. So I think maybe the biggest thing is we changed our style of play a little bit. I think we're playing a little faster than the coach did in the past. And then also our defense we play mostly man-to-man. They played a lot of zone. So I think that was the main 2 things here. And then we hold kids accountable. We just hold, it's not okay to miss a layup. It's not okay to miss a block out. So we just hold kids accountable, and it seems to work so far. These kids have been great, and they've really bought into what I'm doing, and they're having fun. We're new territory. I'll take Jordan Alt example. The most games she ever won in any one year since she's been here is 9 games. So for us to win some of these close games and win 14 games, I mean, it's new territory. So we've been learning a lot of stuff together, and it's been really neat to see the girls blossom.
Jim, I think when you look at this team, just take a peek at the stat sheet. One thing stands out. There's only one double-digit scorer, and that's Claire Grid at 10.7 points per game, yet this team is still 4th among all Summit League teams in scoring. Generally, that's not a recipe for much offensive success, yet you've been consistently a good offensive team. How does that happen for you?
A lot of luck. I don't know. No, really, I think we have a lot of players that are about the same level of talent, so I give everybody a chance to play. And when I say that, I give everybody a chance to play in practice. So every week there's competition in practice, and then that carries over to the game. So I play the girls that week who got it done in practice. And yeah, that hurts continuity, chemistry, and everything like that. But we've been doing it from day one, so now the team is kind of used to it. So I just was very lucky the fact that we have a handful of players that fit my style. That's probably the number one thing that I was worried about coming in here, because I knew I wanted to play pressure defense. I knew I wanted to get up and down the floor and run a little bit, shoot the threes, and I didn't know for sure if we had that, but luckily we do. And again, the kids have bought in. They're sharing the ball. We're probably 4th in the conference in assists too. And it's really pretty simple formula. If it was hard, I wouldn't be able to do it. So we just play hard, and we try to play smart, and we just play together. We just demand that they share the ball, and it's been a fun ride so far.
And going forward with recruiting, Jim, as you start to leave your mark on this program in terms of the kinds of players you bring in, what style of basketball do you want this team to be in the next few years? Big, small, run and gun, shoot the three, defensively oriented? What do you see this team being?
I'd like to be like UConn. But what we're going to try to do is I think the biggest difference between how they recruited before and here is I like our 4s and 5s that can run, pass, catch, and shoot the three, and can defend inside. You got to have a low post game, but I think the game's going more the European style. I've been playing this way for quite a while now, but where your bigs can do guard skills, and that's what we're looking for. And then also, we have Bree Johnson's been great for us on here. We're lucky we have her. But in the past, I've always had tall point guards. If you look at the best teams in the conference, South Dakota State, South Dakota, they all have tall point guards, can play inside and out. And I think that's the formula for winning in this conference. And, probably 3 or 4 years from now, our roster is going to look completely different. Again, we're just lucky we have a handful of girls that fit what I want to try to do here, and it's been surprisingly successful.
Jim Turgeon, Denver Pioneers, the big headliner for the offense, of course, was that gunfight with Western Illinois. I mean, that was a shootout. Lauren Lovin had a career-high 28 in that game, and the two teams set the NCAA record for threes with 36. Have you ever been a part of something like that?
No, I haven't. It was crazy. We could not get any stops. You know, we figured out how to attack they got a special type of defense a lot of teams struggle with, and we figured it out, and we're just blessed with some shooters. And that night we were hitting threes, and every time we'd get it down to like 6 or something, they'd go on a 6-point run, and we just could not stop them either. It was fun. But after that game, I was completely wore out. I don't know how many times during that game I said, just get one stop, and I was yelling that the whole time. But our girls, I think they got, even though we lost that game, and the point spread was a lot worse than the game really was.
Right.
But I think we gained a lot of confidence in that game. We're still, to me, there's 4 teams that are clearly better than everybody else in the Summit League, and we're still not there with like Western Illinois. But I think competing with them and shooting the ball like we did gave us some confidence moving forward.
Jim Turgeon, Denver Pioneers, here on the Summit League podcast. Do you think that's a big experience for you this season too, when you get into the cauldron of the conference tournament, that you could hang with that team?
It's very important. We've been talking about this. I'm glad you mentioned that, because we've been talking about this a lot with our team, because I'm going to give our secret away. But
breaking news here.
Breaking news. Yeah. We have not beat a team yet with a winning record. If you can believe that.
Yeah.
So we've been talking about it, and we got to get that breakthrough. We make too many mistakes to beat a good team. We have too many droughts, either offensively or 3 or 4 possessions in a row of bad defense. And against the top teams in our conference, you can't do that. And we're just happy. Looks like we've put ourselves in a situation where we're going to finish either 4th or 5th in the conference. So that is, obviously, that's the best in this conference right now. That's the best way to get to the semifinal, is being the 4th or 5th seed. So we got Oral Roberts on Thursday. We'll see how that goes, and looks like we might play them again right away in the Summit tournament. And we're really making that a point of emphasis to beat what I call a good team and do things we need to do that.
Jim Turgeon, the head coach of the Denver Pioneers women's basketball team. Let's get into some of these hot seat questions that we kind of save for the players sometimes. First off, what do you remember about the first game that you ever were a head coach for? Not just college, and then why not, too, your first Division I game this year, too?
Okay, well, my first game I ever coached, I'll never forget it, because I was a sophomore coach at Topeka Hayden High School, and I was a 21, 22-year-old kid driving. Back then, you didn't have to have a CDL to drive the bus, and I was driving the bus with these teenagers in the bus out to Shawnee Heights, which was it's a suburb of Topeka, and the game went in overtime. But in regulation, we'd been practicing a last-second play. I can't believe I was smart enough to do that. Practicing the last-second play in case we needed it, and sure as heck, we had the ball with like 5 seconds left, and we ran the play perfectly, and the ball was in and out, and we ended up losing in overtime. But that was my first one. Then my first one in Division I, we were at Air Force, and I was really surprised how nervous I was. I was very, very nervous, and made it worse. It was on my birthday. So
no pressure, yeah.
No pressure. You don't want to lose on your birthday, but we really set the tone in that game right away of how things were going to be different here at Denver, and I was really proud of the girls.
Jim, what's your most memorable coaching moment in your career?
Oh wow, there's been a lot of good ones.
Yeah, there's been a few.
Probably winning the RMAC tournament championship my first year at CSU Pueblo. we got lucky. The first round, you played at the higher seeds home court, and we were number 2 seed, but the number 1 seed lost, so we got to host the semifinals and finals. So we got to win the championship in front of a sold-out crowd, and it was a terrific game. I remember D. Gonzalez had a fantastic game, and it's one of those games where you're almost overwhelmed with emotions, and I'll never forget that game.
Who's the best basketball player that you've had come through your systems? Not necessarily the person who went to the highest level, but the player that you sat there and you went, that's the one. Maybe nobody else knows it, but that's the one, and I know it.
Well, that's not fair for you to ask me that, but I've had a lot of good ones. I've had probably I don't know exactly. I've had probably at least 10 play professionally over in Europe.
Sure.
Gone through my system. But probably the best all-around player is a senior this year at CSU Pueblo, Katie Cunningham, because she can she's a point guard. I made her a point guard, and she can pass it. Her shooting is her weakness, but she can hit the open three when the game's on the line. She rebounds. She's Defensive Player of the Year. She just does a little bit of everything, and her motor's fantastic. And she really doesn't care how many points she scores, how many rebounds she gets, as long as her team wins. And I probably have had more talented players than her. I don't know. Katie might go over in Europe and play professionally, but if I had to pick one, I would pick her.
Jim Turgeon, who are some of your coaching idols coming up?
Oh boy, I had a bunch of them. When you grow up in Topeka, Kansas, you're a Jayhawk fan.
Right.
And first it was Ted Owens, and then it was Larry Brown, and my brother played for Larry Brown. They were heroes, but and I had professional ones too. I was a big Boston Celtics fan growing up, and I liked the Lakers too. That's kind of weird. You like both the Lakers and the Celtics because they had great battles with each other. But my two main ones is first was my high school coach, Coach Meskey. He could see in me at an early age that I was going to be a good coach, and at times at times when he was coaching me, I hated him, but now I completely understand what he was doing, and we've had a great relationship all these years. But then the number one coach that I look up to is my dad. He coached my brother's teams, my teams, my sister's teams, and then he helped at Hayden High School some. But my dad has had the unique ability to challenge players in a way that they just would run through the wall for him. He could get on them and without them being upset. He just had a unique way of the player coach relationship. Besides just knowing the game, having a great feel for the game. So I've had a lot of mentors, a lot of people I really looked up to, but it's my dad's number one.
Jim, what's one area that you think is your biggest strength as a head coach, and then an area that coming into this season you said, I'd like to work on that?
Boy,
tough questions, yeah.
Yeah, you'll never be able to tell by our defensive stats this year, but I think I'm pretty good defensively. We got a lot of work to do here defensively. I think our numbers are better than what they've been in the past here, but it's nowhere near where it's going to be in the future. So I still need to improve on defense, but I'd pick that number one. On the other side, I need to improve on, for me, just as a coach, is delegation. When you're a junior college coach for 15 years, 15, 16, 17, whatever I was, you're used to doing everything yourself, and delegation's really hard for me. I'm one of those guys, well, if it's going to get done right, I'm going to do it myself. So delegation is probably the number one thing I need to improve on. And then over the years, my patience. That's unfortunately, I am like my dad also like that. He's not very patient, but the older I get, the more patient I get. And so delegation and patience I really got to still work on.
That can be a pretty common thing for head coaches, though, I hear.
Yeah, you you strive for excellence. You strive for that perfect game, and you're never going to have that perfect game. So you get impatient with it, and then delegation. I think that's a problem for any leader sometimes. I mean, I guess the best leaders have figured that out, how to handle that, and I got to improve on that.
Coming up for the Denver Pioneers, Oral Roberts this weekend, and then next up, we might have another gunfight breakout between Denver and Western Illinois. That could be another barn burner. But Oral Roberts, what do you think about this game coming up this week?
Well, they're very well coached. I think they're one of the top defensive teams in the league. They're really a tough matchup for us. They got a nice mix of athleticism, but they have some size. And they got a few shooters. That's probably their weakest part. But they're a really hard matchup for us. And again, they're just so well coached. They whipped us at their place. They played really well. We probably played our worst game of the season. But our kids are looking forward to it, and I think we're going to bounce back. And then Saturday we got Omaha at home too. And
that's
that
right.
was a good. That's all right. That was a really good game last time we played in Omaha. It was a close game to the last 4 or 5 minutes, and we got some separation. And then our final against Western Illinois, I got a feeling it will be a gunfight again. Our kids are looking forward to that game, and I'm looking forward to it. And boy, if anybody's listening, you need to come to that game because you're going to see a high-octane offenses going at it.
That's going to be an incredible basketball game. I can't wait to watch that. I'm already cutting out time in my schedule to go see that game. Jim Turgeon, the head coach of the Denver Pioneers. You can follow the team on Twitter at @DU_WHoops and that always busy athletics department, including the defending national champions of college hockey at @DU_Pioneers. Jim, thanks for coming on today. Really appreciate it.
Well, thank you for having me.
We'll be back, and when we come back, SportsCenter's Kevin Connors, the host of KC's Mid-Major Minute, right here on the Summit League podcast.
The madness returns to Sioux Falls with the 2018 Summit League Basketball Championships. See one of the nation's top college basketball tournaments March 3rd through the 6th at the Denny Sanford Premier Center. Tickets are on sale now at any Ticketmaster outlet. All session tickets starting at less than $10 per game. Support your team and find out who will punch their ticket to the big dance. Go to thesummitleague.org/tickets and claim your seats today. Brought to you by the generosity of our sponsors and the Sioux Falls Sports Authority.
Get the latest news on all 19 Summit League sports at thesummitleague.org. Watch championships, access the Leads ESPN3 events, view up-to-date standings, statistics, and more, all at the home for Summit League athletics. Follow the league's social media pages on Twitter @The Summit League and on Facebook and Instagram @/The Summit League. Now, let's get back to Matt Pocket and the Summit League podcast.
All right, here we go again on episode 3 of the Summit League podcast. Joined on the phone line now by KC, the man himself, Kevin Connors. Welcome to the program, sir. Good to have you. How are you?
Matt, it's great to be on with you, and I mean this honestly. It's an honor. It's a privilege to be talking hoops with you on this podcast.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate hearing that. You have always been a big mid-major basketball guy and played college basketball yourself. How did playing at Ithaca help shape you as a big mid-major advocate later on through your broadcast career?
It's a great question. It was kind of one of those things where a lot of the country becomes aware of college basketball starting in January, and then from January into March, they're aware of the top 25 teams, and then for one weekend in March, they're familiar with some of the smaller teams. And, it kind of occurred to me that, guys, the world is bigger than Lexington, Kentucky, and Chapel Hill, North Carolina, and, wherever your top 25 team is from. And so, it's a badge of pride that I was able to play college basketball at any level, and knowing what goes into being a Division III athlete, it's probably not terribly different from what the low-level, mid-major Division I programs are. So if I can be a champion for basketball at any level, I'm happy to do it.
One thing that I gathered when I covered the Summit League regularly as a play-by-play guy during student radio was, like you said, college basketball is not something we see these stories that develop in March and they develop in front of our eyes in March, but really these stories are the culmination of everything that's been going on over the last several months, 5 months almost leading up into March. And these guys don't just come out of the blue. A guy has a big game on a big stage that's usually not his first rodeo overall.
There's no question, Matt. And for me, listen, I talk about this at a place where obviously we do sports of all kinds year round. And it's almost a shame to me that some of the early season tournaments, in different locations are when they are, because I just think that there's sports overload at that point. We just got done with Major League Baseball, and the NBA season is starting up, and hockey season is going on, and of course, you've got college football and the NFL, and I just sort of feel like there's not enough room, and you get to see some really good, unique matchups at that time of year. And as you said, guys are putting up big numbers and storylines are developing at that point. But it's the nature of the beast, and if college basketball can steal the headlines for 3 months out of the year, that's still pretty darn good.
Kevin Connors, the host of KC's Mid-Major Minute on SportsCenter. We've seen some pretty major shifts in the sports landscape over the last couple of years, but it seems like through it all, college basketball has been a staple of ESPN's product, even through all that other stuff going on. How do you assess the network's coverage of the college game at this point, and specifically in regards to mid-majors?
Yeah, listen, one of our bread and butter properties is college basketball, and anymore on the national, but even on the regional sports landscape, it's all about live games. I live in a world where primarily I do SportsCenter, and a studio show has value. There's no question about it. But eyeballs, and the majority of eyeballs, are watching live games, and ESPN has positioned itself in a really great spot as it relates to college sports, college football and college basketball in particular. So I think that we do a fabulous job with college basketball, and I'd say that if I didn't work at ESPN. I think that we really, really cover a lot, whether it's on E1, ESPN2, ESPNU, ESPN News gets games. You've got the SEC network, and then, of course, what I think is better than anything is watch ESPN, because you can watch anything on there. So I think, listen, are there things that ESPN could do better? Of course. But I think we're pretty bulletproof when it comes to what we cover and how much we cover. And when you consider the volume of games that we do, I don't even know what the number is, but the volume of games and the eyeballs that we have on so many games, I think it's pretty extraordinary.
You mentioned the Watch ESPN platform, too, utilizing ESPN3, and that's been a big thing for a lot of programs, because now you might be a smaller program, but you're opened up, and now you're on this same giant network where people can go on demand and catch different games that they might not think about, or they heard something from somewhere, and now they're going to go, oh, well, that game's on Watch ESPN. I'm going to go check that out.
Matt, they heard about it on the Mid-Major Minute, of course, and they said, hey, I've got to check out South Dakota State. It's funny. There's been so much talk here lately about how people watch linear TV and how that number is decreasing. And, I thought about it, and one day it occurred to me as I was watching a Yankee game on my phone, because we were moving. We were getting ready to move, and so I'm packing things up, and I've got the Yankee game on my phone, and I'm in this room, and now I got to go into this room, so I just pick my phone up with me, and I said, oh, okay, this is what everyone's talking about, because I'm doing it right now. So I don't know that the linear will ever go away, but the digital platform where you can watch anything on your tablet or on your phone, wherever you are, it's extraordinary. And really, in the industry, not to get too deep into this, but what it's coming down to is choice, right? People want the choice to do what they want to do, watch what they want to watch, and do what they want to do while they're watching what they want to watch. And so this platform allows you to do that. And then, again, just the volume of games. You're not stuck to watching the Ohio State-Purdue game on ESPN. You can watch any one of 100 games that are on the Watch ESPN app.
Kevin Connors of SportsCenter and Casey's Mid-Major Minute. That's a big deal, too, this Mid-Major Minute, because it's short content that you can send out to a wide expanse of people. They're able to take that content, consume it, and then, like you said, go out and watch the South Dakota State game. How long has that idea been brewing for you? Where did it come from, and how did we get here?
That's a great question, Matt. I appreciate you asking it. So So we had a segment on SportsCenter last year called The Star of the Night. And it was really one of the, I don't want to say one of the few things, but let's just for the purpose of this say one of the few things that the anchors really got to show their personality on. And so a couple of times last year, I was looking for an idea, and I was looking through the college basketball scores. Hey, were there any cool games or upsets or individual performances? And I came across Utah Valley University. I said, what the hell is Utah Valley? Is that a Division II school? Never heard of them before. They just beat BYU. So I did some digging, and I found out, no, dummy, they're a Division I program, and they have this number of new faces on the team, and the coach of the team is Mark Pope, who played at Kentucky and in the NBA. And lo and behold, I thought it was a pretty neat story, and so I did it. And I got a fabulous response on social media. And in large part, it was because of what we've been talking about. No one sees Utah Valley except for maybe a game in their conference tournament. And so I did that a few other instances, and of course one of them being with Mike Dahm and South Dakota State. And it was received really well. And so I said, you know what, I've got to do something with this. And even if it's not always on SportsCenter on the linear brand, maybe I can do it on social media. And so that's kind of where I took the idea this year. And again, it's been fabulous, really good response. And I've been very, very fortunate that programs have been reaching out to me and saying, you know what, hey, could you feature us? So I think it's been a win-win. It's been a lot of fun. And again, I hope it's been educational to people who pay attention to what someone like me has to say on social media, because we are educating people on the programs and the players who are outstanding, but don't necessarily play at Duke and Kentucky.
SportsCenter's Kevin Connors. Of course, you're going to get a lot of love from the programs that you show love to, but has the response been mostly from people at large, the public at large, or is it kind of concentrated more on mid-major fans?
Yeah, both. I would say both. Listen, you know what? When you're gonna run a feature on the University of Buffalo, that's going to get retweeted by that program and then that athletic department, and so the majority is going to be from your fan base. But again, I've had instances of people who have picked it up, and someone, for a perfect example, College of Charleston last week must have seen the Buffalo one or one of the previous ones that I did, and they said, hey, this is really neat. Can you give us some attention? Now, the problem becomes there has to be a hook to it, right? I mean, as much as I would love to, it's tough to feature the program that's 3-24 and trying to spin that into a positive. We'd be here all day if we were doing that. So what I like to try to do is say, hey, who are the worthy individuals or programs, and then let's give them some love. And again, the genesis of all of this has been to get people ready to hear about some of the players and programs who they are going to hear about in March. And again, we've had a pretty good hit ratio in terms of that, and it's, to me, it's only a helpful tool to again get people aware of some of the teams that could pull off those upsets in the tournament.
Casey, in particular, you've talked a lot about Mike Dahm. What drew you towards supporting South Dakota State in particular? Because you've given the Jackrabbits a lot of love, and how's the program responded in turn to you?
And that's been part of the reason, and I'm not telling you it's only because they've been positive to me. Obviously, they've got a guy he's a 2,000-point scorer. He's likely going to play in the NBA. Certainly, he's going to be drafted. T.J. Otzelberger's done a fabulous job there. That program made the tournament last year. They're the favorite to make it, I guess, out of the league again this year if South Dakota doesn't say something about that. So, again, it's been warranted. It's not like we're just picking a team because they've been nice guys. But their response has been great, and I've gotten to develop a friendship over social media with Coach Otz and with Mike and with a few of the other players on the team, and it's been really, really neat to me. And, it's been neat to get to know people on that level and see the success that they've had. And, if I played any small part in getting people a little bit more aware of what they're doing out there, then I take great pride in that too.
Kevin, Dahm is a guy with a really interesting story, too. I mean, it's certainly been well covered, but a guy who was, shall we say, lightly recruited and then went through the path that he did to become a college basketball star. But now he's a guy that nobody in the country can stop. He's top 10 in the country in scoring. Fort Wayne's Bryson Scott is up there, too. What is it about Dahm that makes him so tough to stop in your eyes?
because I think he can do so many things so well. You know, he's a big guy, and so his size at the mid-major level is an attribute. But then he can take you outside, and he can stroke a jumper or a three-pointer, and you know, he's so good down low. He's such a good rebounder. He's so good at creating his own points off the bounce. And you know, at that level, when you've got someone who's got NBA potential, who's playing at the mid-major level, you know, that's obviously an enormous advantage. But what's also so funny about that is you look around the NBA right now, Matt, and you think about some of the superstars in the NBA, and this is where this again has been part of the push behind doing the mid-major minute. It used to be if you didn't play at one of the Power 5 conference schools, you're a long shot. And I'm not telling you that you're not still a longer shot. But you think about, off the top of my head, Steph Curry and Damian Lillard and C.J. McCollum and guys who played at the mid-major level. This is exactly who we're featuring as Steph Curry 8-9 years ago. You're talking about the NBA MVP and a two-time champion. So to get to showcase people who are playing ball at this level, who have the potential to do that in the NBA, to me is really what it's all about. And so it's been really neat to see, and I'm psyched to see. I'd be lying to you if I told you that I didn't have some rooting interest in the Jacks because of the personal relationships that I have, and because I got to see them early on last season and said, hey, they got something pretty cool going on here, and they've maintained it now for 2 years.
Kevin Connors of Casey's Mid-Major Minute on SportsCenter. This is an interesting team because right now there's also a bit of a developing storyline. Like you said, USD could certainly have something to say to upset the apple cart because the Jacks went to Vermillion a couple of weeks ago, and they got hammered by Matt Mooney and the Coyotes out there. But now the Jackrabbits have won 5 straight, and they've taken the conference back with that rematch on the 22nd. That's going to be in Brookings, and Frost is a tough place to play. Are they your favorite to win the regular season and conference tournament still, or do you see maybe the Coyotes or somebody else upsetting the apple cart?
I love the fact that not only do I think South Dakota State is the most talented team in the league, they've got the experience on their side, and that's a huge advantage. And, look, as you well know, they're going to be the hunted. But they've been the hunted all season long, and I think the talent between Dom and David Jenkins Jr., the freshman who's had a fabulous year, he's come on and fit in right away. And Coach Otts, look, they're the favorites, but as you said, you're talking about another team in South Dakota that's won 22 games. I did some homework before I came on here today. There are 7 conferences that have multiple 20-win teams as we talk here on February 11th, and the Summit League is one of them. And the others are the ACC, the Big East, the Big Ten, the Mountain West, the Ohio Valley, and the West Coast Conference. So that's some pretty good company that the Summit League has right now. And so, of course, upsets can happen in March, but I would think that those 2 teams are the 2 teams who are likeliest to play for the championship.
That goes hand in hand with the Summit's rise in the RPI over the last couple of years. They've climbed more than anybody else in college basketball. What do you sense about the perception of the league on the ESPN campus right now and in college basketball in general?
Well, ask Indiana what they think about the Summit League.
Yeah, no kidding.
Listen. Here's how it goes on a daily basis for SportsCenter. There's so many different tentacles at ESPN. You've got college basketball studio, and then you've got college basketball games, and you've got SportsCenter, and you've got however many sports centers we have. And so on a show-by-show basis, we have a meeting and we talk about things that are going on. And so obviously when someone like Fort Wayne beats Indiana again, that's probably going to make the show. What's the perception of the Summit League for most people that work on SportsCenter? It's probably isn't maybe Denver in that league or something like that. But that's where hopefully people like myself and others, producers who are paying attention, can say, no, wait a minute. You got a guy in this league that's about to go for his 2,000th point tonight. You've got 2 teams that have won 20 games. And then so that's how the hook is sold about, hey, we need to show this game, South Dakota State. It's a big game. But again, we've got an hour in most cases to put a show together. And with 300, however many Division I teams, it's tough to give everybody love. But I feel it's our obligation to, when it's warranted, do so. And so that's sort of why I've kind of been a champion for the league. And I'm not saying that in a self-serving way. I'm saying it as someone who's had a chance to pay attention. And, again, to circle back to the original point, make people aware that there is college basketball going on outside of the top 25.
Kevin Connors of SportsCenter, again, talking about this Jackrabbits team. You mentioned David Jenkins Jr. There's a good cast of characters around Mike Daum in particular. Reed Tellinghusen is another in a long line of tough, versatile Jackrabbit forwards, and the bench has been reliable when it's been called on. Do you think they have the formula to be a serious threat should they make it to the big dance?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it depends what are we talking about serious threat? Are they a Final Four team? I mean, that's probably unlikely to highly unlikely. But can they win a game? I mean, there's no question about it. And I think, again, an advantage that teams out of the Summit League will have, and let's use the Jacks as our example here. They got guys who've been around for a little while, and that has sort of been part of the change in college basketball as a whole. Of course, you're going to have the one-and-done programs like Duke and Kentucky that are Michigan State that are always going to be in the conversation on a national level. But then you look at teams like Villanova and Xavier and Cincinnati and Gonzaga and St. Mary's, and I think that these programs, Purdue is a major conference program that's figured out that, you know what, we probably can't get the one-and-done guys. So let's develop guys. Let's get the guys who are going to be here for 3 or 4 years. And so there is room at the table for those guys to eat too. And so from that perspective, to get back to your question, can South Dakota State win a game or two in the tournament? I don't think there's any question about it. I mean, they've got a star. They've got a really good supporting cast, as you talked about. I'm glad you mentioned Reed because he's obviously a major weapon on that team. There's no question about it. Now, a sustained run in the tournament is often pretty hard, but it's happened. George Mason, it's happened before, so it's not crazy to think that something like that could happen again.
This conference has been stable, too, and I think that's appealing for viewers, for people in college basketball. You see so many, like you said, one-and-done programs. And at the same time, you've also got this conference realignment. Everybody's always moving because everybody thinks the grass is greener. The Summit is a league that hasn't really gotten into the thick of these Animal House-esque food fights when it comes to poaching teams from other leagues. Their guys aren't leaving early. You're able to build stable programs with guys that you can build around for a long time. What do you think about that as something that's appealing about the league's structure as a whole?
Yeah, you get to identify with players on teams. It's funny that you asked that question, Matt. I did a few weeks ago when St. John's played Georgetown, and of course that meant Chris Mullen coaching against Patrick Ewing. Right. I was writing a lead-in, and I was thinking, about the battles that those guys had. They both entered as freshmen at the same time, and they graduated 4 years later, as seniors. And I was thinking to myself, man, it's amazing how good those rivalries were. St. John's, Georgetown, Syracuse, because guys did stay 3-4 years, and you got to develop that animosity towards guys like Patrick Ewing or Pearl Washington or Chris Mullen or Walter Berry. And so on a more local level, I think like the Summit League is, you develop those relationships. Hey, that's right. South Dakota State's got a real good team coming back. Hey, that's right. Fort Wayne's beaten Indiana each of the past 2 years. So that's attractive. There's no question about it, because a lot of times at the major level, it's like, oh, wait a minute. Who the heck does Kentucky have on its team this year? Because I don't recognize any of these guys from last year's team.
One interesting note, too, the Scott family, Bryson Scott in particular, I believe he's 5-0 against Indiana. His brother is 1-0 against them. A combined 6-0 against the Hoosiers in that family for guys born in-state in Fort Wayne, Indiana. That'll elevate your league profile and your team profile pretty quickly, I think.
I'm not going to mention that to my new colleague, Tom Crean. I promise you that, all right?
What's next for Casey's Mid-Major Minute? And for those who haven't yet watched for some reason, how can they?
You can check it out on Twitter. My Twitter handle is @KevConnors, ESPN. What's next is what unfolds before us here in conference play, and that's sort of been the fun of it. I get to do things on SportsCenter from time to time. We don't get a tremendous amount of support from ESPN.com because of the volume of things that they have going on, I guess. So it's really kind of been a grassroots thing, and it's been something that I'm really proud of to have gotten whether it's 2 or 3 people who follow me or more than that. It's been a neat vehicle to interact with fans and talk about what the sport of college basketball is all about, which in a lot of cases is, hey, our team has a shot too. You asked me, does South Dakota State have a chance? Of course, everyone has a chance. You get to the tournament and everyone has a chance. And you never know what can happen when the ball is thrown up and you play for 40 minutes. So what's next is let's find out the next team that gets hot. We featured Rhode Island a couple of weeks ago, and you look at the job that Danny Hurley has done, and I think that's a team that really could have staying power in the NCAA tournament. So I can tell you this much. I'm going to have my eyes out for who some of the hottest teams and players are in the country at the mid-major level, and I assure you this, I'm going to do my very best to feature them.
And we'll be watching, too, Kevin Connors of SportsCenter and the host of KC's Mid-Major Minute. Hey, thanks for doing this. Appreciate it.
Matt, thank you so much. I really appreciate it, and good luck to all the Summit League teams for the rest of the season here.
All right, we will be right back to wrap Episode 3 of the Summit League podcast next.
In its 4th decade, the Summit League continues its ascent through excellence in the classroom and success in the field of play. In cities big and small, at public and private universities, students across league institutions reach for the summit. From academic All-Americans to NCAA champions and nationally ranked teams, Summit League student-athletes achieve the pinnacle of success. The Summit League, where tomorrow's leaders reach the summit today.
Get the latest news on all 19 Summit League sports at thesummitleague.org. Watch championships, access the League's ESPN3 events, view up-to-date standing statistics, and more, all at the home for Summit League athletics. Follow the League's social media pages on Twitter at The Summit League and on Facebook and Instagram at /The Summit League. Now, let's get back to Matt Pocket and the Summit League podcast.
All right, another great show, all wrapped up. Nice and neat for today, Episode 3. Send in your thoughts at the hashtag #HearTheSummit. Tag me on Twitter at CornerPocket422 and the league at Summit Hoops, plus through all other relevant social media. Hope you love this episode, dropping here on Valentine's Day. Hey, we're less than a month away from the tournament. 3 episodes out of our 5 this season are in, and I certainly hope that you've all enjoyed the show so far as much as I have. It's been fun. I have loved every single minute of this, but I got to tell you, and I have to admit, I feel a ton of pressure doing this show every other week because it's important to me to do right by all parties involved with this show, especially as somebody who doesn't have any affiliation to any of the universities in this conference. I want this program to be fun. I want it to be informative. I want to give you all exposure to some of the sides of these coaches, student athletes, and programs that you might not always get to see all the time, especially once you dive into the middle of the season. You've got games flying at you every couple of nights. It can be tough to kind of sit back from it all and see those snapshots of these people and where they came from and what their stories are. So that's a big deal to me. I want to make sure that I do everybody that comes on this show justice with their appearance on the program. So I hope you've all enjoyed it over the past couple of weeks, past few weeks that we've been doing this show. I've enjoyed it tremendously. I hope you all have too. In the next 2 episodes, our final 2 episodes of the season, we'll preview the tournament on the 28th of February. That's our next one. And then on March 14th, we'll recap the tournament and take a look ahead of the big dance with some of the key players coming out of the Summit League Championships. Again, thanks everybody for supporting the podcast, but most importantly, thanks for supporting this league and these schools, these coaches, and these student athletes. I'm honored that I'm the one who gets to attempt to share their stories as best I can, and I'm looking forward to telling many more of these stories in the future. Remember, get the app. Get your tickets through the app. Get the schedules. Connect with players. Connect with FanFest. Connect with the total fan experience while we celebrate 10 years at the Falls in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. I wanted to give a big thanks, too, to our guests this week, South Dakota State star Macy Miller, North Dakota State standout Paul Miller, Jim Turgeon, the head coach of Denver's women's basketball team, and Kevin Connors of ESPN SportsCenter, the host of KC's Mid-Major Minute. Remember, too, speaking of ESPN, ESPNU will televise the Summit League Women's Championship game at 2 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Central on Tuesday, March 6th. That night, 9 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Central. The men's title game is on ESPN 2. You can also catch the Summit League men's and women's basketball tournaments in their entirety every minute on the Watch ESPN app. Credits for the show, Mark St. Angelo, Operations Director at Sovereign Communications, Sault Ste. Marie, Michigan, for voicing the open and close. Scott Cook of Yes FM and the Sue's Rock Station, Rock 101, for our other production elements. Producers, Kaylee Ryan, who handles social media for the league. She is awesome with that stuff. And Brian Campbell, who produces those graphics with the quotes in them from each interview, those are A+, and they both deserve full marks. Nice job, folks. Executive producers, the masterminds of the podcast, Summit League Director of Communications, Greg Meddy, and Assistant Commissioner for Communications, Dave Brower, and for the league's sports informations directors, who have all been so accommodating of us into their schedules. I'm Matt Pocket. See y'all in a couple of weeks.
Join us every 2 weeks for a new episode of the Summit League podcast at thesummitleague.org. Follow the league all season long on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at The Summit League. And follow Matt on Twitter and Facebook at Corner Pocket 422.